My brother sold the family business when I was working all the time and said that I did nothing for him. My brother told everyone I was lazy. He spun this perfect little story about how I lacked ambition, how I could never handle responsibility, and how he had to step up to keep our family business alive. And people believed him. While he was out there playing the hero, I was working 80-hour weeks, busting my ass in scorching heat and freezing cold, trying to keep our father's business afloat. When it finally started to succeed, I thought, this is it. All the blood, sweat, and sacrifice were worth it. Then, without a single word to me, my brother sold the business. Just like that. And when he tried to enjoy the money, let's just say, things didn't go the way he expected. But before I get into that, let me start from the beginning. Because even now, as I write this, it still doesn't feel real. Our family business wasn't glamorous. It was a landscaping company, something my father built from the ground up in the 1980s. We weren't rolling in cash, but it was honest work, and it put food on the table. More than that, it was his pride. I grew up watching him pour everything into it, his time, his energy, his health. The man worked from sunup to sundown, barely taking breaks, making sure everything was perfect for the clients. He believed that if you took care of your business would take care of you. But businesses don't have loyalty. And neither do people. A few years ago, my dad started slowing down. His hands shook when he held a cup of coffee. He started forgetting things, small at first, but then bigger. Then came the diagnosis, Parkinson's. It wasn't severe yet, but it was enough. He couldn't run the company the way he used to. That's when my brother Galen and I stepped in. Galen and I are nothing alike. He was always the charming one. The one who could talk his way out of anything. The one who could flash a smile, shake a hand, and suddenly, everyone loved him. Me? I was the guy who actually got things done. I never cared for attention. I never needed people to think I was the hero. I just worked hard and did what had to be done. So when it came time to divide responsibilities, it was obvious. Galen handled the big picture stuff, marketing, networking, client relations. I handled everything else, the actual work. It seemed like a good balance. And at first, it was. But balance doesn't last when one person is carrying all the weight. If you've ever worked in landscaping, you know it's brutal. You're outside in the blazing sun. You're hauling heavy equipment, laying sod, planting trees. And clients? Half of them don't respect you. They think because you work with your hands, you must be stupid. They want their backyard to look like a millionaire's estate, but they have a cheap-ass budget and zero patience. And yet, I was out there every single day. Working. Sacrificing. Keeping the business alive. Galen? Well, he worked, too. In a way. Galen had a way of making himself look important without actually doing anything important. He'd show up at the office in his business casual best, holding some overpriced artisanal coffee, talking about his strategic vision for the company. He'd spend hours on his laptop, supposedly securing contracts or building the brand. I trusted him. He was my brother. I never thought to question it. Until the small things started adding up. One day, a longtime client pulled me aside. "So, when are you planning to take over full-time?" he asked. I frowned. "What do you mean?" "I already have. My dad stepped back months ago." The client gave me a weird look. "Oh. Galen told me you were still figuring things out." I laughed it off. Probably just a misunderstanding. But then, I started hearing similar comments. From clients. From suppliers. From friends. Even from family members. The narrative Galen had been spinning was clear. He was the one running the company. I was just helping out when I could. At family dinners, Galen would dominate the conversation. He'd talk about how much pressure he was under, how hard it was to manage the business, how he was sacrificing so much to keep it alive. Meanwhile, I sat there quietly, trying not to let my frustration show. What was I supposed to do? Say, "Actually, Galen, you spent last Tuesday golfing while I worked a 12-hour shift in the heat?" It wouldn't matter. People believe the story they like best. And Galen? He was a master storyteller. There was one moment, though, that really got to me. At dinner one night, my mom was gushing over Galen. "I'm just so proud of you," she said, smiling at him. "You've done such an amazing job stepping up for the family." Then, she turned to me. "And Alden, I know you're trying your best. Keep at it." It wasn't meant to be hurtful. But it was. It hit me like a gut punch. Galen had convinced even our mother that I was the slacker. That I was just trying my best. I was working longer hours than anyone. I was keeping the business alive. And yet, to everyone else, Galen was the one making the sacrifices. That was the moment I started paying attention. And the more I noticed, the less things made sense. Galen would talk about meetings with clients, but when I asked for details, he'd get vague. He claimed he was bringing in new business, but the contracts? They were all from clients I had negotiated months ago. And then, there were the expenses, new laptops, business lunches, travel. What the hell was he spending so much money on? I tried to brush it off. I wanted to trust my brother. But deep down, I knew, something wasn't right. And soon, I'd find out just how deep the betrayal went. I wanted to trust my brother. For months, I ignored the red flags. The vague answers. The missing contracts. The way Galen kept positioning himself as the leader while I did all the real work. I kept telling myself, he's my brother. He wouldn't lie to me. He wouldn't betray me. But deep down, I knew. And soon, I wouldn't just suspect it. I'd have proof. Despite everything, the business was booming. After years of struggle, we were finally profitable again. We dug ourselves out of debt. For the first time since Dad got sick, things were stable. And for the first time in years, I let myself feel proud. This wasn't just a job to me. It wasn't about money. It was about legacy. My father had built this company from nothing, and I had saved it. Or so I thought. At the same time that things were going well, Galen started acting weird. He got quieter. Not his usual smooth, charming self. His bravado felt forced. One night, he randomly told me, "You should take a vacation, man. You've been working too hard." Coming from him, that was strange. This was the guy who once called me at 6 a.m. to complain about how I hadn't restocked the gas for the mowers. Now, suddenly, he wanted me to take a break? It didn't feel like concern. It felt like he wanted me out of the way. And then, the day everything changed arrived. It started like any other day. I walked into the office, ready to review invoices and schedule jobs for the week. But something felt off. The desks were cleared. The whiteboard, where we tracked all our projects, wiped clean. The filing cabinets were empty. At first, I thought maybe the guys had moved things around. Then, I saw it. An envelope on my desk. The envelope was thick. Official looking. I ripped it open and started reading. It was from the buyer, a corporate landscaping firm I had vaguely heard of. The letter thanked us for the seamless transition and outlined the terms of the sale. Sale? What sale? My stomach dropped. I read the letter again, trying to convince myself that I had misunderstood. Then I saw the date. The sale had been finalized 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks. For 14 days, Galen had been walking around, acting completely normal, while knowing he had already sold our family business. And he never said a word to me. I grabbed my phone and dialed Galen's number. No answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail. I wasn't going to let him ignore me. I got in my truck and drove straight to his condo. When he opened the door, he didn't look surprised to see me. But what pissed me off the most? He looked annoyed. Like I was the problem. "What the hell did you do?" I asked, my voice shaking with anger. He sighed, rubbing his temples like he had a headache. "You're overreacting, Alden." Overreacting? He had sold our father's business without even telling me, and he thought I was overreacting? "It was the best move for both of us," he said. "You wouldn't have understood, so I didn't bother you with the details." I just stared at him. He wasn't even apologizing. He wasn't trying to explain himself. He was talking down to me. Like I was too dumb to grasp his so-called master plan. That's when I knew, he had never respected me. He had always seen himself as the brains of the operation, and me as just the grunt worker. "How much did you sell it for?" I asked, my voice dangerously low. He smirked. Enough. I felt sick. Where's my cut? He let out a short laugh, like I had just asked the dumbest question in the world. Come on, man. We both know I was the one running things. I did the hard part. You'll be fine. The rage inside me went white hot. I had given everything to this business. I had bled for it. And now? I was being cut out entirely. After leaving his place, I sat in my truck, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my hands hurt. Then, I did something I never wanted to do. I called my parents. I told them everything. How Galen had sold the business behind my back. How he had lied to everyone for years. How he had stolen my future right out from under me. My dad? Furious. He's a quiet man, but I could hear it in his voice, the rage. He stole from his own family, my dad muttered. I never thought my own son could do this. But my mom? She hesitated. Are you sure this isn't a misunderstanding? She asked softly. Galen has always had good intentions. Good intentions? He robbed us. And she still wanted to believe the best in him. That's when I realized, if I wanted justice, I had to get it myself. I had to fight back. I went back to the office, determined to find proof of just how much damage Galen had done. I logged into our accounting system. And that's when I found it. A series of consulting payments, thousands of dollars at a time. The recipient? A company called G&G Consulting. I had never heard of it. I googled the name. Nothing. No website. No business listing. Because it wasn't real. It was a shell company. A fake business Galen had created to steal from our own company. He had been siphoning money for years. And now? I had the proof. It wasn't just betrayal. It was embezzlement. And that meant? I could take him down. I sat there, staring at my laptop screen, my mind racing. G&G Consulting wasn't real. It was a shell company. A fake business Galen had set up to steal from our own family company. I scrolled through the payments. Thousands of dollars at a time, being funneled into this fake company. For how long? Years. My stomach turned. While I had been breaking my back, working 80-hour weeks, Galen had been using the business as his personal ATM. I clenched my jaw, rage boiling inside me. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was fraud. Embezzlement. A crime. And I was going to make him pay for it. I knew I needed help. So I called Ashley, an attorney I'd known for years. She was sharp, no nonsense, and had zero patience for liars, which meant she'd hate Galen on sight. When I laid everything out, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she let out a low whistle. This is bad, she said. For him or for me? I asked. Oh, for him. This is straight-up fraud. If we can prove you never agreed to the sale, we might be able to void the deal entirely. And if we show the embezzlement? He could be looking at serious legal trouble. For the first time in days, I felt hope. I wasn't powerless. I had leverage. Ashley told me to gather every piece of evidence I could find. I pulled up bank records, expense reports, emails, anything that showed Galen's lies and theft. And the deeper I dug, the worse it got. I found loans. Tens of thousands of dollars in business loans, money that was supposed to be reinvested into the company. Instead, it had been drained into his personal accounts. Which meant that when he sold the company, he wasn't just screwing me over, he was screwing over the buyers, too. Because those loans? They were still tied to the business. Which meant Galen had sold them a company drowning in secret debt. And that? That was something I could use. Ashley wasted no time. She sent formal notices to the buyers and their legal team, informing them that the sale was being contested due to fraud and unauthorized transactions. And the buyers? They were pissed. The moment they found out about the hidden debt, they froze the sale proceeds in escrow. Which meant Galen couldn't touch the money. He had sold the business, but he couldn't even enjoy the payday. For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt like I was one step ahead of him. But I wasn't done. Not even close. My parents found out what was happening soon after. My dad? He was livid. That boy has always been too slick for his own good, he muttered. But I never thought he'd do this to his own damn family. But my mom? She still tried to defend him. Maybe there's an explanation, she said softly. Maybe he thought he was doing the right thing. I couldn't even look at her. The right thing? He stole from us. He stole from me. He lied to you, Mom. She didn't respond. And that? That hurt the most. Even with all the proof, part of her still wanted to believe in him. But it didn't matter anymore. Because this wasn't about family drama anymore. This was about justice. And I was going to get it. A week after the sale was frozen, I decided to confront Galen one last time. I didn't warn him. I just showed up at his condo, same as before. When he opened the door, he actually looked nervous. "What do you want, Alden?" he muttered. "You stole from me. You stole from the company. You stole from Dad. And now? You're going to pay for it." I threw the folder of evidence on his table. Bank records. Emails. Fake invoices. He flipped through the pages, his face turning paler with each one. Then he scoffed. "This is nothing," he said. "What, you think you're gonna take me to court? We're family, Alden. You don't take your own blood to court." I stared at him, feeling nothing but cold rage. "You made this a legal fight the moment you stole from me." For the first time, I saw something in his eyes I had never seen before. Fear. Ashley filed the lawsuit a few days later. We were going after him for breach of fiduciary duty, fraud and misrepresentation, embezzlement, unauthorized business transactions. And when the buyers realized he had lied to them, too, they started building their own case against him. Which meant Galen wasn't just fighting me anymore. He was now up against a corporate legal team with deep pockets, a judge who didn't take kindly to fraud, a family who wanted him to pay. And suddenly, his world started falling apart. The first sign of Galen cracking came when I got a call from my mom. "He's been acting strange, Alden," she said, her voice worried. "He's not eating. He's snapping at everyone. I think he's scared." Good. Because he should be. Then, about a week later, Ashley called me with an update. "The buyers are pulling out. They don't want any part of this mess." Which meant the sale was voided. Which meant the business was legally mine again. The last time I saw Galen was at the deposition. Ashley grilled him for hours, laying out every single shady thing he had done. Finally, she asked him a simple question. "Why didn't you just ask your brother for help?" For the first time, Galen hesitated. He looked at me. And I saw something almost like regret in his eyes. Then he shook his head and muttered. Because he wouldn't have understood. He never saw the big picture. I almost laughed out loud. Even after everything, he still saw himself as the smart one. The court ruled in my favor. Galen was ordered to repay the stolen money, cover the loans he had taken out, forfeit all rights to the business. The business was mine again. And Galen? He had nothing. His bank accounts were frozen. His reputation was ruined. And for the first time in his life, he had to face the consequences of his actions. When the court ruling came down, I felt nothing at first. I thought I'd feel victorious, maybe even relieved. Instead, there was just emptiness. I had won. I had proven the truth. But what was left? I had spent years fighting to keep this business alive. And now? It was a shell of what it used to be. Because of Galen, I wasn't just walking away with my business. I was walking away with his mess, his debts, his destruction. But one thing was clear. Galen was finished. And I? I was going to rebuild from the ground up. After the ruling, Galen disappeared. No phone calls. No texts. No more smug big-picture speeches. At first, I didn't care. Then I got a call from my mom. "Alden, you need to check on him," she said, her voice trembling. "He's not well." I almost laughed. "Not well? Mom, he did this to himself. He stole. He lied. He ruined his own life. Why is that my problem?" "Because he's your brother," she whispered. I closed my eyes, pressing my fingers against my temple. I didn't owe Galen anything. But for her, I went. When I showed up at Galen's apartment, I barely recognized him. The confident, smooth-talking manipulator I knew was gone. His usually pristine condo was a mess, half-empty takeout boxes, unopened mail piled in corners, liquor bottles on the counter. And Galen? He looked rough. Unshaven. Eyes hollowed out. The man who once cheated me out of my future now looked like he didn't have one himself. He opened the door but didn't say anything. Didn't even look at me. Finally, after a long silence, I spoke. So, what now? He gave a hollow chuckle. What now? He echoed. There is no what now, Alden. I lost. Game over. I leaned against the counter, studying him. You did this to yourself, Galen. He nodded slowly. I know. And for the first time, I think he actually meant it. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe some grand apology, some moment of self-reflection. But this was Galen. He wasn't wired for that. Instead, he rubbed his face and sighed. So, how much do you want? I blinked. What? Money, he muttered. I know you didn't come here just to check on me. You want something. I felt a wave of disgust rise in my chest. I don't want your money, Galen. I want you to own what you did. He laughed again, but it wasn't cocky this time. It was broken. I have nothing left, Alden. No job. No business. No future. What do you want me to say? That I was wrong? Fine. I was wrong. But that doesn't change anything now. I stared at him. And I realized something. He wasn't lying. He really had lost everything. And for the first time since this all began, I didn't feel angry anymore. I just felt done. I didn't stay long after that. I walked away from Galen's ruin, knowing that was the last time I'd probably see him. I had my own life to fix. And that started with the business. When the sale was voided, the business came back to me, but it was in shambles. Galen's embezzlement had drained accounts dry. Loans had to be repaid. Several clients had left, shaken by the chaos. It would have been easier to just let it go. But this company wasn't just a business. It was my father's legacy. And I wasn't going to let it die. So I restructured everything. Cut unnecessary costs, focused on the most profitable jobs, rebuilt client relationships. It was slow progress, but it was progress. And little by little, I brought the company back to life. Months passed. I hadn't heard from Galen since the night I saw him at his lowest. Then, one evening, I got a text message. It was from an unknown number. It just said, I know I don't deserve it, but I'm sorry. I stared at it for a long time. Then, I deleted it. Because in the end, it didn't matter anymore. It's been over a year since it all happened. The business is strong again. I have a great team, loyal clients, and control over my own future. And Galen? I heard he left town. Rumor is, he tried to start another business somewhere else. Maybe he's changed. Maybe he hasn't. Either way, it's not my problem anymore. Because for the first time in a long time, I finally feel free. Thank you for watching the video. Like it if you watched the video to the end, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.